So in the previous video, guys, we spent a little bit of time talking about the deception that we have to be vigilant about what we're believing and what we believe to be true and why we believe what we believe. I walked you through a little bit from the CIA, even quotes from Theodore Roosevelt, Operation Mockingbird, the family jewels, the CIA report. I hope you guys have taken time to Google and look at some of that information. Then we went into Constantine, just an introduction real quick. We talked about his purported conversion. We talked about the Arch in Rome. We talked a little bit about the Nicene Council. Guys, these are just brief intros that we talked about. Talked about the sunburst and what's behind the saints and all the pictures and even the Christ. We discussed that. And what we want to, we talked a little bit about the names. Where's the names of our Creator? What are they? Why are they there? Those are things we're gonna get into all of those things. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit first. Many of the truths presented that we're talking about, they might be disturbing to you, challenging many of the beliefs you've stood on most of your life. Ask yourself, why do you believe what you believe? In other words, where did my belief system come from? And in Thomas 2, it says, Yeshua says, the one who seeks should not cease seeking until he finds. And when he finds, he will be dismayed. And when he is dismayed, he will be astonished. And he will become king over all. It has to do with the process of enlightenment, the process of gaining knowledge, the process of gaining understanding. And that's what this is about. I'm exposing you to some thoughts, many of them you probably never have even thought about, and those will be disturbing to you. And it may make you dismayed or disturbed. But then after you're disturbed, you will be astonished or you will marvel. And then you will rule. I use, for the quotes in Scripture that we'll go through, I always use what's called the TS 2009. It's from the Institute for Scripture Research. You can actually Google it if you wish to buy a hard copy. You can go to Bible.com, and one of the versions you can pull up and look and read it there, TS 2009. It's just more of a literal Hebrew record of Scripture. And it's my choice, I prefer it. And we're going to get into some of the different versions of the Bible, some of the different where they come from, what's the history of them, how did we get the different versions, and what's the background in that process. We're going to cover that as well. Let me give you an example of why it's important to understand what version you're reading. This is out of the King James Version, Matthew chapter 1, verse 21. And she shall bring forth a son, and that shall call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. You guys all know this verse. You know where I'm going. Now all this was done that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, Behold, a virgin shall be with child, and she shall bring forth a son, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, which being interpreted is God with us. Okay, two verses different. We're fulfilling prophecy, because the prophet said, the virgin shall be with child, shall bring forth a son, they shall call his name Emmanuel. So they had a son and named him Jesus. Okay, I don't know if any of you, when you read that, go, wait a minute, what? But I did when I was about 2. And so that's why it's important to try to be as specific as you can on the translations. Now, it doesn't hurt to read multiple different versions to get different perspectives, but you got to have a resource you can go to that's going to give you some more literal and closer explanation of what the original Hebrew or Greek words meant. So again, Bible.com, just go pull up the TS 2009. That's what I'll be using here, where you can read along and check on any of the references I give. But I spent decades studying the Scriptures and history, teaching Bible studies, serving in leadership of a mega church, and really just trying to learn how to draw closer to my Creator, to try to learn how to understand His ways, to walk in His ways, to live a life of favor, to live the life of abundance, the promises that we have. And I walked it out faithfully, as many people do, but it wasn't working. How many people do you know that they're consistently tithing and giving, but they're not getting it back pressed down, shaken, running over. They're not getting a 30, 60, 100-fold return, as I heard time and time again. Scripture tells us when you lay hands on the sick, they should recover, and they're not. They weren't. And people were dying, and people were killing themselves. And I was seeing all these different things in the megachurch, and you go, yeah, but that's the way it is in the world. And I go, yes, exactly, that's the problem. And I'll give you a few research studies here to take a look at why I say that it's the problem. The Barna Research Group, who's one of the foremost in scriptural and spiritual pollsters. Barna Groups did a survey of Americans, Christian and non-Christian, and as a result of this survey, they found that there was no marked difference between believers and non-believers in their lifestyles. Now wait a minute. Well, that's what we just said. I just listed the things that I kept seeing in the megachurch world and we agreed, yeah, well, that's just the way the world is. It's there and it's out of there. There's hypocrites in the church and out of the church. You know what? The church is supposed to be different. It's supposed to be different. And I'm sitting there in the front of the pew looking, and it's not different. And I'm seeing divorces and people hurting and torn up and deaths and people not being healed and all these and broke. And they're not prospering, and as the promises kept telling me, and that's what caused this unsettling in my heart. It made me start digging. I ran across this article, Pew Research, why young people are leaving Christianity. In record numbers. Record numbers of young people are leaving Christianity. Why is that? If it's working, and you're living in this teaching, and you're walking that teaching out, and you grow up in it, why would you not grab closer to it? You know what? Because they're seeing mom and dad and they're seeing it not work. And that's what's happening. And it should work. And it will work. And if you're willing to stick this out, you're going to understand why it's not working and why it should work and will work. Barna did another research study. And they said, in fact, when evangelicals and non-evangelical born-again Christians are combined into an aggregate class of born-again adults, their divorce figure is statistically identical to that of non-born-again adults. So, in other words, plain English, we took the evangelical and non-evangelical born-again adults, compared it to non-born-again adults, and the divorce rate's exactly the same. I'm just asking you, look inside yourself. You don't answer to me. Look inside yourself and think, should that be the same? Should it be like that? No, it's broken. There's a problem. Could it be ulterior motives when we're talking about Constantine? Could it be that maybe they didn't have your pure best interest in mind? Maybe they had an idea to manipulate and control masses of people? Let's look at some scripture now. In John 14, verse 11. Believe me that I am in the Father and the Father in me. Otherwise, believe me because of the works themselves. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who believes in me and the works I do, he shall do also. And greater works than these he shall do, because I go to the Father. So he shall do these works that Yeshua does, and he shall do greater works because Yeshua goes to the Father. And he says, whatever you ask in my name, that I shall do, in order that the Father might be esteemed in the Son. If you ask whatever in my name, I shall do it. Is he doing it? Why are we not seeing it? We are asking. I know a lot of people are asking. They've asked for family members to be healed. They've asked for people and children not to die. They've asked for many things. Why isn't it happening? Well, that was verse 14. Let's read verse 15. If you love me, you shall guard my commands. If you ask whatever in my name, I shall do it. If you love me, you shall guard my commands. There's some keys that we're going to get into and where you're going to clearly understand. Let's take a look at Deuteronomy 7. Blessed are you above all peoples. There's not going to be a barren man or barren woman among you or among your livestock. And Jehovah shall turn away from you all sickness and put on you none of the evil diseases of Misraim which you have known. But he shall put them on all those who hate you. In Deuteronomy 7, he's talking to his set-apart people, the people who are following his teachings, the people who are following his ways. We like to refer to them as the law, the oppressive law. They're not laws, they're teachings. And they're taught to teach you how to live a successful and prosperous, beneficial life. And so he says, if you live this way that I'm teaching you, blessed are you above all peoples. There's not going to be a barren man or barren woman among you or your livestock. He'll turn away all sickness from you and none of the evil diseases of Egypt which you have known, but he shall put them on all those who hate you. Now, if we believe we're heirs to the Abrahamic covenant, why wouldn't we believe we're heirs to the same promise? We are. But it's a covenant. It's a covenant. Let's look at Mark chapter 16. And when he said to them, go into all the world and proclaim the good news to every creature. He who has believed and has been immersed shall be saved, but he who has not believed shall be condemned. And these signs shall accompany the ones who believe. In my name they shall cast out demons. They shall speak with renewed tongues. They shall take up snakes, and if they drink any deadly drink, it shall by no means hurt them. They shall lay hands on the sick, and they shall get well. Then indeed, after the Messiah had spoken to them, he was received up into heaven and sat at the right hand of Elohim. So this is at the end of Mark. This is the last thing that he said on earth. And he's saying, he who has believed and has been immersed shall be saved, but he who is not shall be condemned, and these signs shall accompany the ones who believe. So according to this scripture, believing is part of the equation of salvation, and to the one who believes, in my name he shall cast out demons, they shall speak with renewed tongues, they shall take up snakes, and if they drink any deadly drink, it shall by no means hurt them, and they lay hands on the sick, and they shall get well. It doesn't say if it's God's will. It doesn't say if he feels like it, or it's Tuesday or Friday, or he skips around 2 times. It says that you lay hands on the sick and they shall get well. It says you can drink poison and it won't hurt you. That's if you're saved. Yeah, if you believe and are baptized, you'll be saved. If you believe, these signs follow you. So this just means you qualified for part of the equation of salvation based on Mark chapter 16. Those are things that made me start questioning, wait a minute. That's not what I'm seeing. That's not what I'm seeing. So how does all this happen? Where does it take place? How do we get there? Well, shortly after Yeshua was taken up, after this verse was said, and he was taken up to the right hand of the Father, the Jews revolted. And the Jews led a revolt, and they threw the Romans completely out of Judea. And many times people are question this peace that was taught and how peaceful. No, it wasn't. They were oppressed by the Romans, and it's just like Yeshua was not killed between two thieves. The Romans never killed anybody for stealing. You weren't impaled on a stake for stealing. That's not what it was. They were rebels, and they were fighting against the Roman occupation in Judea. And if you look up the Jewish Revolt, AD 66 to 74, of when the Jews broke out in wars against the Romans and threw them out. At that time, Vespasian Flavius was the emperor of Rome, and his son Titus Flavius was the head general. And so now we're talking about 69, 70 AD. The Romans have been thrown out of Judea, and they muster their army and they return, and under the rule of Titus Flavius, they crush Judea. They wipe out the Jews, they kill 80% of them, they destroy the temple. Again, as Yeshua had said, not one stone will be left on another, but it'll be torn down. And so then they marched on an outcropping called Masada. And Masada was a stronghold. It was monks, about 500 monks that were there, and the Romans built a siege against it, and eventually they broke through. It was on the top. You can see it today. It's part of many of the visits when you visit the Holy Land, and it's a plateau, and on the top of the plateau is Masada. And this was a place that this sect of the Essenes, of a Jewish sect, they studied. That's what they did. They were monks. They studied writings and ancient writings and history and scrolls, and they took their library. When the Romans were coming, they took their library and they hid it. And they had vast library of scrolls upon scrolls upon scrolls. And what they did is they loaded all these scrolls up and had a couple of guys take off and go hide them in caves. And when you look at the picture here of the Dead Sea, you see Masada on the south end, and you see as they go up the whole east coast of the Dead Sea, you see where these caves are, which are places where they have found the Dead Sea Scrolls. We found 2016, I think was the last cave we found. We're still finding them. And so these Dead Sea Scrolls now we have an insight into this Jewish sect of the Essenes that were living contemporaneously with Yeshua at that time period. And what did they value? What were the writings? What was important? What was important to them? What did they value? And it's a wonderful, amazing view looking into the past that we get to see. They hid these scrolls in clay pots and sealed them. And so many of the scrolls were in relatively decent shape. Many were not, many couldn't be recovered, but there were many that were utilized. And again, go out and look at the contents of the Dead Sea Scrolls. Go out and read them. They've been translated. Today you can read them, and it's all online at the tips of your fingertips. It's not like you got to go get on a plane and fly over and go through some archaeological study or go to a museum. This stuff's available right on your fingertips today. We have more knowledge accessible to us than any time in the history of the world. It's at our fingertips. And a man named Josephus Flavius wrote a 20-volume set called The History of the Jews, or The Antiquities of the Jews. And what the Antiquities of the Jews does is it's called they talk about it as a secular history of the Jews. And so Josephus Flavius was a Jewish leader, a Jewish general during the Jewish Revolution. But guess what? Josephus Flavius, Constantinus Flavius, Titus Flavius. You're seeing some correlation? Yeah, he wasn't born Josephus Flavius. He was born Josephus ben Matthias. Josephus ben Matthias, more commonly referred to as Josephus Flavius or Flavius Josephus. Why would a Jewish nobleman, a Jewish general, why would he change his name to a pagan Roman emperor who was responsible for killing the Jews, wiping out 80% of the Jews and walking on them and destroying them and tearing down their temple and just vast major destruction? Look up the Flavian dynasty, that's what they're known for. So why would this Jewish historian change his name to Flavius Josephus? It's illogical, it makes no sense. Was Flavius Josephus, was he looking for favor? So how well in this Roman world could this Jewish general and historian, how well could he write the truth? How well could he actually write what he believed to be true and be okay with it? Well, he wasn't. He was looking for favor. He was looking for understanding. He was looking for to stay alive. And he took the name of the general and the emperor that had marched on Judea and killed 80% of his comrades, his friends, his family. And we move on from that time period where we've got this, the Jews have been destroyed. We've got, or 80% of them, they're still a Jewish faith. There's the sect of the Way, or those that are following the teachers of this special sect of Judaism called the Way, or the followers of Yeshua. And they're growing and they're expanding and they're building. And they continue to have little battles and little uprisings, and the Romans keep putting them down, and there's slaughters where they go in and slaughter them, and we talk about the Christians from the time of Christ until Constantine in the 4th century. I challenge you to find any reference to a Christian from the time of Christ until the 4th century. The 4th century was where that terminology was developed. The 4th century is where what we believe today was created and developed in the Roman Catholic Church. The teachings of the way, the teachings of Yeshua says, and we're going to get into it later in depth, follow the teachings of my Father, follow the teachings of my Father, follow the teachings of my Father. But there comes along about the 4th century. Now keep in mind, we talk about Constantine, and we talk about the 325 AD, 312 AD, and they're in the 4th century, early in the 4th century. That's 300 years. 300 years. That wasn't a day or two after. That was 300 years after the Christ had walked the earth. Think about our nation. Think about the age of our nation. How long since George Washington crossed the Delaware? How long's that been? Now think about that time period. We're talking about a vast amount of time, especially when there weren't printing presses and computers and the ability to keep information like we have today. But there appears on the scene a young, aggressive Roman general by the name of Constantine that becomes an emperor. And Constantine is an emperor of 1/4 of Rome. And Constantine sets out to bring all of Rome back under his rule. And one of the main keys that Constantine uses to make this happen is religion. And what if Constantine didn't have his conversion on the road to the Battle of the Milvian Bridge? What if he was a sun god worshiper and that's what he maintained and that's what he stayed? What if he decided to create this unified, universal religion that would bring together all religions under the empire and create the official global religion? What if? How much can we count on what is being taught? How much can we count on it being true? How much can we count on it actually working? Or could we count on it being a tool, which we have quotes of him saying it is the tool. And it worked. Constantine combined the 4 kingdoms of the Roman Empire back into one. And he combined it under his rule. And he formed Constantinople as the head of the new Rome. And you had Rome and you had Constantinople. That was his seat of government. And we have several edicts that we can look at that Constantine issued. And as a matter of history, let's take a look at some of the edicts. The edicts of Constantine, 321 AD. The venerable day of the sun, Sabbaths observed on Sundays. You ever wonder about that? We know that scripturally we're told to honor the Sabbath. We're told to honor the Sabbath until the end of time. We even show in eternity references to honoring the Sabbath. So there's no reason to believe we shouldn't do it now. And this honoring the Sabbath is the 7th day. Sundown on the 6th day till sundown on the 7th day is technically the Sabbath. We're told to honor the Sabbath. The Sabbath is Saturday, which Sabado, Sabbath, that's what it means. That's what it is. So the 7th day Sabbath became the 1st day Sabbath, or Sunday, or the day of the invincible sun, which is literally what it is. And the Edict of Constantine, 321 AD, made it illegal to observe the 7th day Sabbath and made it the 1st day Sabbath, the day of the invincible sun. Look it up. Edict of Constantine. The First Council of Nicaea in 325 AD created the Trinity. There was no such thing as a Trinity prior to that. It was created there. And it was actually from a very contested vote. And actually a few of the naysayers wound up assassinated the night before the final vote, in which the ayes carry. And so that's what was happening at that time that come out and created a Trinity. We're going to get into that in a minute. The Council of Antioch, 341 AD, it prohibited the celebration of Passover. What? Yeah, you want to know why we do Easter today and we don't do Passover? And where did it go? How did it happen? Why? The Council of Laodicea in 341 AD, it forbade the Jewish Sabbath. And as some of the Messianic followers had been observing the 7th day Sabbath and the 6th day Sabbath and the 1st day Sabbath in order to obey the law since 321. So for 20 years they were doing both. Then he came and made it against the law for even the Jews to observe the 7th day Sabbath in addition to the 1st day Sabbath. Edict of Thessalonica, 381 AD, Nicene Christianity, official religion of the Roman Empire. So we like to say that Constantine made Christianity the religion of the Roman Empire. Yeah, Constantine invented Christianity, and the Universal Globalist Church, or the Roman Catholic Church, was the invention of Christianity with all of the rules and the rituals that went along with it. And then he made it Nicene Christianity, the official religion of the Roman Empire. in 381. The Council of Chalcedon, 451 AD. It defined the Godhead and manhood of Christ. The Second Council of Constantinople, it said the Virgin Mary could be called the Mother of God. Look it up. Second Council of Constantinople, 680 AD, that the Virgin Mary could be called the Mother of God. Not the Mother of Christ, but the Mother of God. You ever heard, those of you, my Catholic friends, what do you say? Have you ever heard when they're saying their Hail Marys? The Second Council of Nicaea in 787 AD said the venerations of icon are approved. Or where you see the churches that are full of all the icons, when our Creator said, make no graven image of me, make nothing to represent me. You can't put me in a box. But today we're full of icons. Well, that was a law. It was passed in 787 AD. Let me introduce you here to a picture of the imperial crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Who was the last emperor or the last world leader to wear this crown on his head? The crown of the Holy Roman Empire. Check into the next video and you're going to find out right away. Thanks for watching.